Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. I'm your host Ashwin. I'm joined by Varun. It's not the most fun week to be recording, Varun. We have a lot to cover, but last time we got to record after the India-Pakistan match, it was a much higher energy kind of episode. And of course, this is the second India-Pakistan match in succession on a Sunday. And it's not quite as positive a mood today, right? How are you doing?
Yeah, it's not the same mood as last week, but as we were discussing, there are potentially 4 matches of India-Pakistan between now and October.
Oh, I thought you were saying
Uh,
4 in the Asia Cup. I got confused, but yeah, 3 in the Asia Cup and 1 more.
yeah, so today's, I guess yesterday's game was the game to lose if we had to lose 1 out of the 4. So let's review it from that perspective, that it's unlikely we would have done 4 out of 4. But the potential next is the final, and the other one is the T20 World Cup. So like I said, if we had to lose one, this is it. But it does put pressure on us, right? Because you now can't lose any other game, and there's going to be net run rate, and yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah, absolutely right. So, of course, if you haven't figured out, we're talking about the Asia Cup T20s that are going on right now. When we last met, India had played Pakistan in the group stages, and since then the group stages have wrapped up. The Super Fours have started. India has played two of the Super Four matches are done at the time of recording this. India played their first one, losing to Pakistan, and yeah, there's a couple more Super Four matches, and by the time we're with you next, which will be Sunday again, release on Monday, the final of the Asia Cup will be done. So, Varun, let's quickly run through the couple of big things that happened since the last India-Pakistan match. Starting with number 1, the first match that happened was Bangladesh-Afghanistan. I'm not going to run through it all. Like, Bangladesh batted first, didn't put on much of a total, some lower order heroics. Mujib picked up 3, Rashid Khan picked up 3, and Afghanistan made it look pretty easy. And I just want to ask you, like, maybe 5 years ago, or definitely 10 plus years ago, you would have said Afghanistan, Bangladesh, both kind of the minnows in the Asia Cup and in the Asian setup. And B, I mean, it seems pretty clear so far. Afghanistan is the superior side, probably the third side after India and Pakistan. Like, is there a surprise with that? You look at Rashid and Mujib and these guys who play T20s all around the world, and it shouldn't be, but somehow still surprising to see Afghanistan do this well, right?
I mean, I'm surprised that they just beat Sri Lanka and Bangladesh so convincingly. They beat Sri Lanka by 8 wickets in the first game. They've beat Bangladesh by 7 wickets. We know their bowling is strong, but their batting has always been questionable, right, for the last couple of years. So I give them a lot of credit, man. I thought with the experience of like Shakib and Mushfiqur and some of those guys that, you've got probably 200 T20s between these two players. You should be able to get across the line. But full credit to Afghanistan. I mean, they topped their group. They've come in unbeaten so far. And yeah, I mean, I think it's yesterday I had a chat with some friends and they were like, why are you surprised? Afghanistan is, after India, Pakistan, the third best team. They're better than the others. So that was so that was quite good.
Yeah, I mean, well said. I think the batting has always been questionable, and the top order has looked really good this tournament so far. So it's interesting now that India has to beat Afghanistan, or I guess mathematically probably should beat Afghanistan to qualify. Mathematically, they could probably lose and still make it. But yeah, very, very interesting to see the team do really well. From there, before we come up to the completion of that group, India played Hong Kong. I mean, again, not a lot to write home about, right? India batted first this time. Nice little half century for Kohli. Brilliant half century from Surya Kumar. Like, it at one point didn't look great, and then India ended up winning by 40 runs or so. So talk me through that. Anything much to say?
I mean, interesting that they brought Pant back in. They rested Pandya. I think that was the right move because you don't want to overexert Pandya at all with the T20 World Cup. And lo and behold, what has happened? We've got 2 premier all-rounders. One has already left in the Asia Cup. Ravindra Jadeja is out with a knee injury, potentially out for the World Cup, and that messes up the balance a lot. So Rishabh Pant came in instead of Pandya. Okay, good move, I would say, but there was no need. And this is the issue with playing teams like Hong Kong. Your top 3 or top 4 are just going to play out that innings. Now, Rahul struggled, 36 of 39. What kind of an innings was that? The others did well, happy for Kohli to get a century. But the highlight for me
half
was
century, like Kohli, before somebody quotes us.
Half century. But yeah, the highlight for me was Kohli bowing down to Sky, man. Like, I think he had 3 sixes in the last over, maybe even 4, but he looked disappointed that he didn't hit 6. Like you could
Yeah, it's
tell
just
that when
like,
he
all right,
missed
every ball must be a six, and
yeah.
if I'm not getting it, it's just...
And Mr. 360 for India. I mean, fantastic 260 strike rate. It's unheard of. And ultimately he propelled India to that win, right? Because let's say he got that extra 25 runs, we would have been what, 165, and Hong Kong did end up making 152. So remember, I don't know, DJ would have a great memory, but the last Asia Cup, Hong Kong gave us a little bit of a scare. Now, how maybe that's a 10% scare or what, but if it wasn't for Sky's innings, maybe we would have been a little bit nervous this time too.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally fair. I want to ask you before we talk about the other match, right? Like, what Pakistan played Hong Kong 2 days later and ended up winning by 155 runs. Well, Hong Kong got 38 all out. Like, again, I don't want to double click too much on that. We want to spend most of our time this episode chatting about the India Pakistan match. But with Hong Kong getting 38 all out, somebody's like, is this Hong Kong or RCB or who's playing right now? But more importantly, like, is it bad for the state of associate cricket that a player like Hong Kong got a chance to play against Pakistan? And is it bad for India that they got pretty close to us and then Pakistan just demolished them? Like, what happened?
Yeah, it's a odd one. I saw the highlights of this game and I was like 38, and there were some nice shots in that 38 too, some nice boundaries and all. I don't know. I think we have to quote our coach Rahul Dravid, who was saying that I don't know if you saw that video, but he was
I
talking
didn't,
about
man, but everybody's going crazy
yeah,
about it.
he's
Yeah.
saying the Indian bowlers get the results. They're not quite as, and then he kept hesitating. Not exuberant, not this. He said it's a four-letter word that starts with S, and all of us are thinking, what is that? But then somebody picked it up that he's trying to say sexy. So yeah, Pakistan game against Hong Kong, the Pakistan bowlers was pretty sexy, and they delivered. So good job.
Yeah, so not hugely surprising. A1 and A2 ended up being India and Pakistan. Good wins against Hong Kong. One was bigger than the other. And then on Thursday, Bangladesh played against Sri Lanka. And because Afghanistan had won 2 out of 2, this match became basically a knockout match, right? And so Bangladesh is facing off against the Sri Lankan side. And they actually batted pretty well, made 183, right? So you could sit there and argue, and in Dubai, when you're getting to chase, 183 isn't quite good enough. Good little cameos from a few different folks, including Mosaddek coming in at the end and making 24 of just 9. But then Sri Lanka put up a brilliant chase, right? Kusal Mendes up the top of the order, and then the skipper Dasun Chanaka at the end, anchoring them, taking them home. It was not without nerves. They ended up winning with 4 balls to spare. But yeah, I mean, a lot of rivalry, a lot of excitement in that. The Nagin dance, actually saw some pictures of the Sri Lankans doing the Nagin dance in retaliation. Like, when India has been playing Pakistan this tournament, it feels like it's been friendly and like almost too friendly, actually. DJ asked me last week, he's like, is this too like fun and nice and friendly? And when Bangladesh is playing Sri Lanka, it feels like there's this real animosity. So Varun, is this the new
Because
rivalry in Asia?
they also came out. Well, we talked about India, Bangladesh being the new rivalry. Basically, I think Bangladesh just likes to get under everyone's skin, right?
And
Like
then,
they said Sri Lanka has no world-class bowlers, or no world-class players. And then Jayawardene and all took great offense to that, and they tweeted after. And yeah, I don't know. Like, the Nagin dance is great. It always comes up. And then, by the way, Mushfiqur has retired
wait,
from
really? I missed
T20s.
that.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
I'm a terrible
retired.
podcaster.
So 1 month before the World Cup, I guess it's a, look. I guess for them, to not be able to qualify for the top 4 in the Asia Cup is a big thing, right? And if I was a Bangladesh cricket fan, I would be really, really upset at that too. Because this is a condensed version of a big tournament. So you expect your team to make it. When they don't, it's like we all discuss on this podcast, the changes have to be made. So yeah, disappointing for Bangladesh, good for Sri Lanka. In fact, you mentioned, since we're talking just quickly about Sri Lanka, they actually then played their first Super 4 match, right, against Afghanistan, and this time came out on top. So again, like that, Sri Lanka, I don't know, man, they just have these ups and downs. But suddenly, when you look at the points table for the Super 4, Sri Lanka sitting on top, right?
Yeah,
They're at 2
yeah.
points with the highest net run rate. Pakistan is next. And so it brings us all to this big match, right?
Yeah, before we get into the specifics of the big match, I was going through this. And so, sorry, if that wasn't clear, Sri Lanka chased it down really well, good knock. And they ended up Oh, sorry, we're not talking Sri Lanka. Afghanistan happened again in the first match of the Super Fours. Afghanistan batted first. Great innings by Gurbaz, by the way. 84 in just 45 balls. Phenomenal knock. And yeah, despite Mujib picking up a couple, Rashid went for runs, which was surprising, actually, a rarity. But yeah, a good knock by the openers and pretty consistent 30s all around. And I want to ask you about T20 strategies later. But more importantly, Varun, of every single game that has happened in the Asia Cup till date, you take aside the two Hong Kong games,
I was just going to bring this up. I was just going to say this.
every single team that has won chasing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So Sri
exactly.
Lanka
And I was,
won both against Bangladesh and against Afghanistan in the Super Four because they chased, or no, well, having chased, and then they lost to Afghanistan the first time because they had to put up runs on the board. Like we've said for many years now, the UAE is win toss, win match, right? Is that what's happening
and
in
we
big
and
Hong
we've
Kong?
and we've seen it more closely because the IPL has been held there
Yeah,
two times, right?
and it's
So we know
unbelievable
this, and
correlation. Yeah.
every one of us has watched what 60 matches a year now in the UAE and know that this is the case. The Asia Cup has started; it's the same thing. Um, I sure in big pressure matches like a final, I think somewhere that is taken out, but you still have to. It's still an advantage, and the same thing is happening here. It's just unbelievable actually that T20 and UAE is so one-sided. You're right, except for Hong Kong, who, with no disrespect, we have to call it out, are the weakest team by a large margin. No other team has lost batting second.
Yeah, so what does one do if you're a tournament organizer, right? Like, okay, fine, it's easier to chase. Maybe that means the teams batting first need to start putting up 200 plus. Even today, which we'll come to, but India made, and it's just still today for me, by the way, but India made 181, and you're like, it's probably 15-20 short. It ended up that way. Like, what do you do? Do you just like start saying you play two match series, one team, once you'll bat first, once you'll bowl first, and then you see the net aggregate difference or something? Or like, how do you offset the, I mean, we're not all here to watch the result of a coin flip, man.
Yeah, it's not easy because ideally uh you can't have a two-match series. You'll have to have a three to determine a winner.
But then
You
one of
can't
then
have
one
a
team will bat first, bat second, two
Yeah,
of the three times.
exactly, right, exactly. So there is no solution to this. I don't know, the solution has to be better ways to get rid of the dew. um yeah, actually there is no solution. There's radical thoughts that said you play a four innings T20,
Yeah,
right? Like a test match, but 20 overs, and
yeah.
but it just doesn't make sense. None of this makes
Sachin, I
sense. There
think,
is
had said do
nothing.
4 10 over innings, which again, I don't know if it actually changes anything, but that could be an interesting idea at some point.
Yeah, yeah, correct. So yeah, it's not that easy. I don't think there's a solution, and it is always going to be a problem. Even a world test championship, like you show up at Lords, the toss goes against you. You have one match to determine who's the best test team in the world.
Yeah.
It may not work, or it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I mean, anyway, it's interesting. It's disappointing, to be honest, that so much of it comes down to the toss, but that's the way it is for now, and that means teams have to do better. I don't know. Maybe there's a proposal like the team chasing only gets 19 overs to chase it down or something, and that starts to change the math a little. I think that would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it actually that's true. That would be awesome. Hey, by the way, I didn't realize that. Is there some change in the rule that if you don't complete your overs by a certain time, you can't have one fielder outside?
Yeah. So if you're, I don't remember the
I
exact,
didn't know
but
that.
yeah. So in the 19th, at the end of the 19th over, they give you a time update, and for that last over, you can have one less fielder outside if you're a certain amount behind the timings.
Yeah,
So
so
it makes it
that's
fascinating.
harsh.
Yeah.
The other thing I realized when I saw this, and we'll get into it in the second half of the show, is I think the when Rohit Sharma got out,
Hmm.
the batsman crossed and Rahul was on strike the next ball. I thought that was an ICC rule that said now on a catch the batsman can't cross.
I
So I found that odd, unless I misread something.
Yeah, I thought the laws have changed as well. Clearly, neither of us actually knows the answer to this, but I also thought
Yeah,
that even if players cross, the new batsman will be on strike. So unless we missed something, that's really
yeah,
interesting.
maybe.
So anyway, write into us, send us a tweet or a email or some sort of a message at One Tip One Hand if you know the answer and we missed something. Arn, I want to talk to you about the big game, but we're going to make folks wait for one more second. We're going to take a quick break. We will come back and talk about the India-Pakistan Super 4 match. So don't go anywhere.
Hello. It's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Advertising is Dead, Varun is joined by GrowthX founder Abhishek Patil, and they discuss the challenges faced by internet-run organizations and how problem-solving is a collaborative effort. On Marathi Khirkitun is a crossover episode as the Deshmukhs welcome the hosts of Don Baika Gappa Aika, Avanti Damle and Aparna Dixit, to celebrate. On All Things Policy, Suman Joshi and Sarthak Pradhan discuss the debate around freebies offered by political parties to voters. On Cyrus Says, Cyrus and Abbas are in conversation with visual artist Shantanu Hazarika about his early days in the Northeast, his love of heavy metal, and how he ended up designing album art for Indian rappers. On Think Fast, Varun and Suchita talk about recent mergers and acquisitions. They talk about companies like NDTV, but they also talk about their own experiences as LBB got acquired by Nika and The Glitch was acquired by Group M. Once again, I'd like to remind you all about our merch store. Go check it out on the website, ivmpodcast.com. There's a tab for a shop. Click that and it'll take you to our store. Also, do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Please do spread the word about the show. That really, really does help us. And finally, do remember, rate us or review us wherever you are listening. And that could also be YouTube. We have a number of channels on YouTube where you can go and check out our shows. You can go and find those channels on ivmpodcast.com/YouTube. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week: HDFC Mutual Fund, TransUnion Civil, SBI Life Insurance, Checkpoint Software, and Smallcase. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Welcome back to the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. If you're just joining us, we're doing a full rundown of the Asia Cup, although I guess this is a podcast and a YouTube video. I don't know how you might be just joining us. It just seems like a cliched line to say. But Varun, let's talk about India-Pakistan. I mean, obviously disappointing result, right? Like, let's cut to that chase, but let's start a little bit with team selection. Okay, that was, the matches are at 9 o'clock in the morning, my time. It was a Sunday, so 8:30, the coin is flipped and you start seeing the selection. And really, compared to the last game, there were 3 changes, right? So Avesh Khan is ill. There was lots of entertaining tweets about how Avesh was informed this morning that he's supposed to act like he has a fever. I don't know if he's ill or not, but he had a pretty terrible outing. And Ravi Bishnoi came in his place. So you had the one extra spinner. Then Ravi Jadeja missed out, like you said, and Hardik Pandya kind of came back in, if you do that as a like for like, if you will. And we have no surprises on Hardik coming back. And then Dinesh Karthik missed out and Deepak Hooda came in. So talk to me versus the previous game. Rohit actually said at the toss, selection is a nightmare. Without one lefty who also bowls 4 overs of spin, it became a nightmare. But talk to me how you felt about that 11.
It was, I think the challenge became that lefty, right? Because lefty right is not the right way to say it, but it became a big issue for India because you've had to make 3 changes. Now, let's talk through each one very quickly. Dinesh Karthik has made 1 run off 1 ball in the Asia Cup so far. Okay, so to drop him is a little bit harsh. Dinesh Karthik also is a very clear number 7 now in this team. So what you've done is, in effect, you've somehow replaced Pant with him, but told Pant he will bat at 5. Pant is not the best T20 player. Okay, let's be honest. When they walked out into this Asia Cup, he wasn't even in the 11. And I was quite happy about that because he's not done enough. Now you've got Pant coming in. So now you need somebody who can bowl 2 overs if needed. And so the only option is really Deepak Hooda or Akshar Patel. I feel like India missed a trick. I feel like they should have played Akshar Patel because his bowling is more valuable. And if you're going to play Pant at 5, the number 7, playing Hooda at number 7 is not a great decision. I see Hooda as more of a top number 3 batsman who can come in and kind of take the game away in the first half of the innings. And everyone will have their own views on this. But basically, when Hooda comes in at 7 and doesn't bowl, he's pretty useless in this side. Even though we're all fans of Hooda and love the way he's played for the last 6 months. So I feel like India missed a trick there. I feel like they could have played an Akshar, they could have played a Dinesh Karthik, and they just changed it. Now, the one change that I was very happy about was Ravi Bishnoi because I'm a fan. I think he's a great bowler. I think he's not easy to get away. The ball slides, the ball turns. And so I was very happy about Bishnoi. But the other two changes were not great. Look, we are talking in hindsight. But if you had to play Huda, you should have played him up the order.
So let's just come to very interesting, good insights, and I fully agree with Huda up the order. Would your team have had the same top five: Rahul, Rohit, Kohli, Sky, Pant, Hardik 6, and then Akshar 7? Would that have been the play, or would DK have been the play? And you sacrifice although Huda didn't end up bowling, it probably gives the captain some peace of mind that he could.
Yeah, so I would have played Akshar, probably pushed Pandya up the order. Or had basically had Akshar replace Jadeja like for like, depending on the situation, and kept DK at 7 because that's where he is. You can't now change DK. Everyone's position can't be like up in the air, right? So DK has to be at 7. I would have played him there. He's not done anything wrong. Pant has only gotten into the team because he's a left-handed batsman. That's it. There was nothing else.
And I guess the question is, I actually think one of the reasons we lost is because Pakistan did a better job rotating their lefty righties, just of moving around their order, and our bowlers couldn't adjust. Do you think Pant walks in as the only lefty?
I mean, unless you get Dhawan back.
Dhawan, Nitish Rana, Washington Sundar. We got some names. We got some options.
We got some great lefties, Kishan, but it just Padikar. We got a lot of lefties. Yeah. But it's just not working. There's no other lefty in the squad. Forget anything else. There is just no other left-handed batsman in the squad.
Very interesting. So Jadeja again showing just how much of a miss he is. I think. Do you know, Varun, if it's confirmed that he's out through the World Cup? I think I saw some.
I think Dravid in that same interview said the World Cup is 7 weeks out, so it's too early to say. But my reading of the situation is it's not positive. So they're not trying to make a call on him yet. But it's not positive, and that is going to be very damaging for India.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if Akshar can find his way back in, or we try something different. But let's talk through this, right? So obviously, didn't want to be batting first, but that's where we were. Rohit Sharma looked like a bit of a different beast today. He always goes after ball 1, but he looked like every other batter that he was talking to. He was pushing an intent. Like it almost looked like he pushed the intent on Rahul, and after a scratchy 36 off 39, I think you said it was in the previous game, Rahul came out, made 28 off 20. Rohit made 28 of 16. I'll tell you my point of view before asking, but I personally feel like I'm happy with a batsman making 25 to 35 runs at a quick strike rate, knowing that we have pretty good depth of batting. I would not love you to make 50 off 43 balls and just stay there too long. I also don't want you getting out at 8. But if you can make a quick fire 30 and move on, that's not the worst thing in the world. But so what do you think about this strategy? It looked like a very different India, right?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I am much happier with the openers combined at 50 to 60 runs at a strike rate of 155 average between the two. Knowing that Kohli is going to follow, knowing that Kohli's game is a little different, knowing that Kohli is supposed to bat till the 20th over, I was very happy with the top 3 and the way it was set up. Genuinely no complaints. They went after the bowling. They took their chances. Even though they were both Rahul and Rohit were mistiming some shots for 4 and 6, they continued to do that. So credit to them where it's due. They did very well. Kohli did super well as well. But
talk me through his innings, right? 60 runs at strike rate of 136. But so sometimes there's what the numbers tell you, and sometimes it's that feeling you get when you watch, right? He had a couple of these unbelievable strokes. He had a nice little pull shot for 6 at one point. He came down the track and hit it over the covers. Like, did it feel like the last inning in Hong Kong, and then some of the early shots he had here unleashed Kohli, and like it felt like we were seeing the Kohli from a few years ago?
Yeah, I mean, back-to-back 50s. Yeah. Anyone you talk to, I got a lot of messages from friends yesterday. Not one person could fault him for his innings. We're going to bring up our favorite topic, which is Basra. An acceptable Basra is what, 180, 185,
and 190? So today would have been 196.
196. You really can't fault him. Also, we're going to talk about what happened after the top 2 got out. But Kohli held his ground, right? Like, when he came in over 5.2, I basically said, now my view for Kohli's role is to bat till 20. ensure that the guys around him go for the runs and get a nice 50, 60 at a decent strike rate. He did exactly that. Okay, now that's it. That's it. We cannot keep faulting him. He played very well. He's got 2 back-to-back 50s. Very happy with Kohli.
So then what fell apart really was the rest of it, right? And part of why, arguably, I could have seen a world where Kohli ended his innings at about 150, 155, but he had to adjust a little because nobody really supported him, right? Sky got off to a little bit of a start, looked great for a couple balls. Pant got off to a decent start. Hardik made a second ball duck. Huda looked like he would struggle a little, then he had one nice shot over the keeper. And yeah, really nobody did anything, right? So does Virat as a 3, and I'm fine with it personally. I just know he gets flack, but he has to adjust his game to survive till the 20th over when the batsman who you have in the team to accelerate just couldn't do it. Like at one point, this looked like 210. Did it feel like 181 was always too short?
Yeah, it did. I mean, let me talk through that quickly. Okay, firstly, Sky and Pandya are going to fail. They cannot play every game.
Sure.
So the others need to stand up. The only hope that we can have is that Sky and Pandya don't fail in the same game.
Yeah.
If there are 2 names in the top, I would say 6, because Jaddu's out now, who are automatic selections, it's Pandya and Sky. So let's just hope that they both don't fit in the same game. In a situation where they do, the others need to step up. Now, Kohli did, we've talked about it. He's done his job. He had to stretch it out. Pant was just terrible. Okay. Pant was horrific. I don't know what he did. The way he got out on Shadab, it was just horrible. In fact, Rohan, who has come on this show before, just messaged me for the game that Shadab is going to get Pant out, right?
Wow.
Everyone knows it. Every one of us knows this. How can Pant not know it? He tried to hit a reverse sweep. The ball climbed a little higher, turned a little more, and it was catching practice. So, Sky at 13, Pandya at 0. Pant, you cannot have 14 of 12. It's unacceptable. And then Deepak Huda, you're going to now drop him in the next game because you batted him at number 7, not
which
his
is
position.
Completely out of position.
Yeah. You didn't bowl him, as we'll talk about in the next innings, but he's now made 16 of 14 at a strike rate of 114, right? So again, from a number 7 batsman, I would say terrible innings. So what has happened? Your top order has now done well. The middle order has done badly. Like I said, there just seems to be no balance. And I also want to call out that there was terrible misfielding by Pakistan, right?
There was at least 8 runs.
We got 6 runs extra because of that in the last 2 balls. Otherwise, those both would have been singles. So 181 was the target. It should have been 175. And when you know that the team batting second is going to win, it's always short. It's just always short.
Yeah, I mean, interesting. So 2 things quickly before we talk about the chase. Ravi Bishnoi ended up with the Basra of 408. I don't know how you think about that, but he had a strike rate of 408 runs.
Yeah, I mean, that's fantastic, right? Like, he should have bought like Fakhar Zaman dinner or something after that.
Seriously.
Because 400 Basra is fantastic.
Phenomenal. But let's talk about the other question I have is Bishnoi or Bhuvi walking in at 8, is obviously like not great, right? If you look at even Pakistan's batting depth or sides like England, West Indies, they can bat through 8, 9-ish. I don't think there's a question mark that your first 2 quicks for Team India are Bumrah and Harshal. So does Team India look like a different side going to Australia if Deepak Chahar has full fitness? Like the 50s he made before he got injured. So like if he can bat at 8, does that change your batting depth and allow your guys a little more freedom?
Yeah, it does, especially when Jaddu's not there.
Yes. Yeah.
It absolutely does. So you need to start considering these things, right? You have to bat deep. You have to back yourself if you're chasing that the game can be won even by your number 8 batsman. The conditions are such that it'll suit them. So it does, man. But can you fault Bhuvi? He's played so well. Like you.
No,
you
I
really
don't
can't
fault him. I just
either.
think team composition stuff is interesting.
Yeah, it's tough. That's why the minute Jaddu goes out, you heard Ravi Shastri asking Rohit at the toss. Both of them said this is a nightmare. It's a headache was the exact word they used. So
yeah. So as much as I don't want to, let's quickly talk through the chase. A couple of things, right? Babar didn't fire again, which I think is interesting, which means one of 2 things. Either his form is starting to wane a little, or it means he's just saving it for a big final, which is going to be interesting to see. Fakhar had a really rough day. I mean, after the misfielding, then ended up batting at less than a run a ball. but it was the Mohammad Rizwan show, right? So at one point they promoted Mohammad Nawaz to give some variety and a good player of spin, and ended up just absolutely tonking some of our bowlers out of the park. Chahal had a pretty unfortunate day, and yeah, Rizwan and Nawaz basically took them over. I mean, it got closer than it probably should have at one point. At one point, when it was 48 off 30, I said this game is done. Then it got a little close, but walk me through kind of the innings before we wrap by talking about Arshdeep.
Arshdeep catch, is that what you're asking?
I want to talk about the catch, the last over, which he did pretty well.
I mean, dude, the thing is, he was so casual about it that you didn't really know how to react to this, because the ball just, like, again, I think it was off Bishnoi, right?
Yeah.
The ball just, it was a beautiful ball. It popped into the air, and he just kind of completed the motion and dropped the catch as if he took it. I don't know.
Did it look like he was trying to celebrate already? He was ready to like catch and celebrate, and that's why it dropped?
I don't think so. I don't know what happened. It was
so
just
casual. It was too
so
casual.
simple.
Because it was that
it was
easy,
too
bro.
casual. It was too casual. Like, you can't do that. And then Rohit is screaming at you.
Rohit
And you're
was
going
losing
on
his
smiling.
mind.
Yeah, and you're going on smiling, right? I've not seen Rohit that animated also for a long time. Then suddenly you saw Pant not happy about something. I don't know, man. That last 10 minutes of the innings didn't look very good for Team India, because they seem to be all over the shop. Kohli was off the field. I don't know why, for some reason. But yeah, that drop catch, yeah, that did kind of change the game, right? Because it was just too simple, man. It was just, I can't take Arshdeep's smile out of my head after he dropped that catch. And it's okay, it's a game. Okay, we're all joking. It's a game. Yeah. These things happen. But yeah, you got to hold on to those catches in big games. He then came back and bowled well, right? The last over was not like, it was a good last over. He picked up a wicket also. He was moving the ball in, moving the ball out, Yorkers. But yeah, man, unless you're Bumrah bowling the last over, 1 or 2 Yorkers out of 6 are going to be full tosses, and the batsman is going to hit that for 4. So that's what happened. We shouldn't delve too much into it. It's just that what this result has done is that it's made the Asia Cup more alive, because now Team India has to win the next 2 games and think about net run rate as well. And I think India is playing on Tuesday and Thursday this week, if I'm not mistaken.
It's coming right up, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, that net run rate, we are not going to know what the final equation is when we go out there to play. So obviously, the focus will be getting 4 points, but getting those 4 points pretty quickly as well, because the final game is going to be Sri Lanka versus Pakistan on the Friday, and both teams are sitting at the top of the table with a healthy net run rate. So it is on, man. This Asia Cup, I think, with this loss, has suddenly lit up.
Yeah, I agree. It is on. That's the right way to say it. I think, a couple of quick things from me. I think Arshdeep, unfortunate catch. Every single one of these players has dropped an unfortunate catch. This was just, bad timing. So unfortunately, folks like this get a lot of abuse on social media. Hopefully, it's pretty clear. I don't hold anything against him. He, it was a bad catch. It happens. There was just not enough runs on the board. And I think Pakistan would have done it one way or the other. I mean, if it wasn't for Asif or Iftikhar who came in, the next guy would have done it, right? I do think he bowled a pretty good penultimate or last over. I think we lost the game between over 7 and 15, right? When we couldn't accelerate because we kept losing these wickets. And Hardik and Chahal both went for a lot of runs during those overs. So disappointing to see. But to your point, the Asia Cup has come alive. Varun, last thing before I let you go, predictions. Are we going to see another India-Pakistan final and India lift the trophy?
Yeah, we are definitely. Come on, we have to say that. You're going to have 3 Sundays in a row with India Pak. This is going to go down in history as 3 best Sundays. It is definitely going to be India Pak, guys. So make sure you watch the next couple of games and tune in.
All right, Varun, good episode. Nice to put this one in the bag. Great to relive the Asia Cup as much as today wasn't fun. Hopefully next week we'll have a joyous episode with all 3 of us and we get to celebrate a positive result. But until then, lots of matches ahead. 2 India matches, like you said, Tuesday, Thursday. Please, as always, write into us. We're at One Tip One Hand on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You can email us contact@onetiponehand.com. And we love to hear from you. So join our Discord. Make sure you're engaging with us. Leave us a review. And if we will see you next week. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.